Welcome to Ordinary Unknown. In 2005, a Boeing 737 Helios Airways flew itself for exactly 2 hours and 7 minutes after its crew became completely incapacitated, somewhere over the Aegean Sea. The autopilot executed every leg of the programmed route, held 34,000 feet, and initiated a descent toward Athens without receiving a single human input the entire time. 2 Greek F-16s intercepted the Boeing 737 and found the cockpit dark, the captain's seat empty, and the controls untouched. What the fighters could not explain was why the aircraft was still performing so precisely. The pilots radioed the aircraft 14 times and got nothing back. Not static, not a broken transmission, just silence from a plane that was flying perfectly. One F-16 pulled alongside, and the pilot looked through the cockpit window at a seat that should have held a captain making decisions. What he saw instead was a ghost flight doing exactly what it was programmed to do, with no one left to stop it. The plane wasn't spiraling, wasn't alarms and smoke, wasn't the disaster you'd picture when you hear that the crew was gone. It was calm, it was level, and it was on course, which is somehow the most unsettling part of this entire story. That precision wasn't an accident, and it wasn't luck. It was the autopilot doing its job with a competence that raises a deeply uncomfortable question about who was really flying that plane. The plane wasn't spiraling, wasn't diving, wasn't sending any signal that something had gone catastrophically wrong. The autopilot had accepted its programmed route and was flying it with the calm precision of a system that had no idea what was happening in the cabin. 3 separate automated layers were running simultaneously, each one doing exactly what it was designed to do. The flight management computer held the course, cross-referencing GPS position against the filed flight plan every few seconds. The autothrottle was trimming engine power to maintain cruise speed, making small adjustments the way a careful pilot would. The autopilot itself was holding altitude, correcting for wind drift, keeping the wings level over the Aegean without a single human touch. None of those systems required a conscious crew to function. They only required that no one had switched them off. And nobody had. What investigators found wasn't a plane in chaos. It was a plane in perfect, obedient, automated order. The horror wasn't that the aircraft had lost its mind. It was that the aircraft never needed one. The autopilot didn't know the crew was dead. It only knew the destination was Athens. So it did exactly what it was programmed to do. It began descending toward the runway, smooth and precise. Every altitude change, every heading correction, every speed adjustment came from software, following a flight plan no living hand had touched for hours. The aircraft wasn't falling, it was navigating, executing an approach with the same mechanical confidence it would have shown any other day. That's the part that stops you cold, because the system had no category for everyone aboard is unconscious. It had waypoints, and it had instructions, and it followed them without a single moment of hesitation or doubt. The plane crossed into Greek airspace, descended through 10,000 feet, and continued toward Athens like a scheduled arrival running perfectly on time. Automation doesn't pause to ask whether the humans who built the plan are still breathing to see it through. It just executes. And in that gap between execution and judgment, 121 people were already gone. The autopilot on Helios 522 didn't fail. It did exactly what it was designed to do. Every system on that aircraft assumed a human was present, watching, ready to intervene at any moment. The designers never built a mechanism to ask whether anyone was actually there. That omission wasn't carelessness. It was a philosophical choice baked into every commercial autopilot flying today. Automation was built to assist human judgment, not to question whether human judgment had already left the room. Helios exposed the gap between those two things with brutal, unambiguous clarity. The plane followed its route, held its altitude, and circled its destination like a machine that had no reason to stop. It had no reason to stop, because nothing had gone wrong by any measure the system could read. What failed wasn't the autopilot. It was the assumption that a working cockpit always contains a working crew. That assumption is still flying. For more aviation mysteries, subscribe to Ordinary Unknown.